Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Go the Distance podcast, where we have real, raw conversation about real, raw life issues. Don't forget, we come to you live and in color and in person each and every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. You can either subscribe to the podcast through your podcast app, searching Go the Distance, or you can watch us on our Rock Creek YouTube channel or the Rock Creek Facebook page, where it premieres every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I wanted to just tell you, all of you today, that I'm so super excited about the traction that this podcast has been getting and all the listeners and viewership that's been growing. Thanks for taking time out of your week to just tune in and see what God's been doing in my life and in your life, and just talk. And whether we're talking about scriptural things right out of the Bible, or where we're having conversations with individuals about certain things, it's just been a blessing to be able to do this. This is a result of COVID. So a lot of new things have come out of this season that we've been in, and this is one of those. And so we just so love being able to do this each and every week. And I look forward to filming, but I also look forward to it premiering so that I can just speak to you each and every week in the middle of the week. I have a special guest in the studio tonight, and I've had a lot of guests of late, but this one is the most special one to me, because this week's podcast, I have my mini-me, my twin, my daughter, Haley Wilkerson, is in the house. Hey, Haley.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
I know. I kept joking. I was like, when am I going to get to be on the podcast? Like, you've had everybody else. Mom's been on here like 10 times.
Well, not 10, but about 4.
A lot of times.
Yeah. So we're really glad to have you in the studio tonight. Super excited to have my daughter, who, if I had hair, we would look like twins. But Haley is in town. She arrived in town today, and we're shooting tonight on Monday, the 23rd of November. This is Thanksgiving week that we're shooting. This plays on December the 2nd because we're a week ahead on our podcast filming. But she's in town for Thanksgiving, hanging out with her mom and me and her brother Ryder and her Nana and Pappy and Natalie, her aunt, and Corey, her uncle. But I know why.
Most importantly,
I know why you're in town. You're really in town to see
Scarlett.
That's right, yep. Scarlett, which is my niece.
My cousin.
That's
but
right.
We're 25 years apart, so it feels more like a niece-aunt relationship.
Yeah. She's precious. Yeah. Did you know, I don't know if you know this, but yesterday morning, when the band was warming up and practicing, I fed Scarlett breakfast in my green room.
Aww.
Yeah, she just sat on my knee, and I fed her cereal, and we had some great uncle niece quality time.
Actual uncle niece time.
Yeah, it was quality time.
I got a picture that Natalie sent of Ryder holding Scarlett, and she had a big old bag of Santo Domingo coffee, and Natalie said, coffee for my insomniatic child or something, because I guess she didn't sleep well.
She doesn't sleep at all, I don't think. But yeah, I just got back from the Dominican. Mm-hmm. Your mom and I did the Saturday before that Sunday, and I brought back a bunch of bags of coffee for specific people that had asked Pastor Jonathan for the Santo Domingo. The Santo Domingo coffee is really good.
I remember several years ago, you had too many cups of it, and you had to preach, and not only were you off the wire with just caffeine, but you also wore like this neon yellow highlighter yellow shirt that day, and you were on another level. Like I remember you being like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm out of my mind with caffeine.
Yeah, well, here's what Santo Domingo coffee is really good for 2 things. One, it gives you a lot of juice and energy for preaching. And number 2, if you have to have a real controversial meeting that's going to have a lot of conflict and tension, drink that coffee before you go, and you'll just fly right through that meeting.
Right.
Because you just won't even have any idea. You'll just have so much energy. It's great.
I love it.
It's like
when the Holy Spirit takes over,
yeah,
and you're teaching or you're talking, having a conversation, and you leave and you're like, I don't know what just happened. I don't know what I just said.
The Holy Spirit is either your mother or Santo Domingo coffee, one of the 2 in my life.
I was about to say, or the Holy Spirit of the Trinity.
Yeah. But he speaks a lot of times through your mom's voice and the voice of Santo Domingo coffee.
That's true.
So, well, we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight. Many of you know that I have a son, Ryder, because he's here in the area. And those of you that are recent attenders of Rock Creek, whether it was post the COVID lockdown or you started attending when we opened our building, you've seen Ryder, you know Ryder, or you've known about him. But many of you don't know that I have a 25-year-old daughter, that Sarah and I have a beautiful, wonderful, strong-willed, female leader.
Love how you had to throw in the strong-willed.
Yeah, and that's in ministry full time at Inglewood Baptist Church in Jackson, Tennessee. And you're on staff there. What do you do there?
So I have been there for about 2.5 years now, and I am the middle school girls director. And so within our student ministry, we have a high school department and middle school department. And so my sole responsibility is to minister to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls and their moms and their families, and come up with creative ways to just engage them with the gospel, to engage them in community, and to just help them on their faith journey with Christ. And so I've been doing that for 2.5 years with them.
6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls. I bet you never deal with any issues.
Never any issues, never any drama. It's a walk in the park.
Yeah. Now, to be able to have a full-time position that just oversees 6th, 7th, 8th grade girls, the church has to be fairly large.
Yeah, it's a fairly large church. We have 3 campuses within driving distance of each other. We've got our Highland campus, which is our kind of hub, our center campus, and we have a North campus and an East campus, and they're all very different with cultures and their styles of worship and cultures of the attendees that come, the members of those churches. And our ministry, I think, before COVID, before things started shutting down, we had probably 200, 250 on a Sunday morning between high school and middle school.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And so a given Wednesday before COVID was, 70 middle schoolers at least.
Just middle schoolers?
Yeah, just middle school.
Okay.
So it's fairly large. So we have 14 middle schools represented just on our middle school side, a mix of private schools, public school, homeschool programs.
Okay.
Lots of people represented.
So overall, let's talk pre the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about when you were there and it was at its highest peak before the shutdowns. What was a Sunday morning attendance church wise?
Oh gosh, I think for the campus I'm at, for our Highland campus, I think it was close to 4,000.
Okay.
Between our 3 services on our main campus.
And then that's not counting the other 2. Now, are you responsible for the middle school girls at the other campuses?
Yes, I'm over all middle school girls with all campuses. Our programming is different for our North campus and our Highland campus. We don't really have a big student present at our East campus right now. But for North campus, our programming is flipped, so it's harder for me to get out there. But whenever we do big, we call them global events. So if we do a girls weekend or Disciple Now, we call Transform Weekend, camp that involves all campuses, I cover those middle school girls as well. So those are our times together. I wish I got out to North campus more. Those girls are awesome. But I'm kind of rooted and planted at our Jackson campus.
So how many middle school girls do you kind of have to oversee?
Oh gosh, I wish I had counted. I guess you could probably say there's roughly 20 per grade for Jackson campus. And then if you count our North campus, I would say it's anywhere from 80 to 100 maybe.
Okay.
That might be stretching it. Let's just say 80.
80 middle school girls,
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th grade. That's quite an undertaking. That's quite a group to have to lead when you think about the fact that our youth ministry on Wednesday nights here right now at Rock Creek, we've crept over the 100 mark.
Okay.
And we're running between 100 and we've had as high as 121, I believe, but
Yeah.
we've been up over the 100 mark quite a bit this fall semester.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's our team is amazing.
That's a big difference from when we had 3.
Yes.
One of 3 in the early days.
Yes, because for those of you that don't know, when we started Rock Creek, when it was Church of Celebration Metro, you were going into 8th grade.
Yeah.
And we uprooted you between your 7th and 8th grade year, moved you from Pilot Point to Prosper, complete school change, small school, larger school. And you went from being in part of a church that had numerous kids and teenagers in their ministries to 3. There was you,
Kelsey Bronner and Matthew.
well, there was actually 4 because you had Megan Rich.
Yes, that's right.
So you
That's
had
right.
4.
She
So
was a
there's-
couple years younger than
Yeah.
me, so I don't know how much overlap we had over the years.
So you had 3 girls, Megan Rich, Kelsey Bronner, Haley Wilkerson, you had Matthew Todd. That was our 4 kids in our youth ministry when we started. And it's pretty neat now to see you grow up in our ministry. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of this here.
Yeah.
You've seen it when your mom and I would wonder if we were going to make it. You've seen the stressful moments. You've seen the not so wonderful moments. You've seen the pressure of ministry. You've seen the pressure of trying to make something out of nothing. And then you've seen the pressure of trying to hold it all together when it seems like it's spinning out of control. So with all that being said, why in the world would you want to be in ministry?
It beats me. I have no idea, other than just the fact that it's one of those things when you look back and you're like, I don't know at what point, but the Lord put on my heart that I would not be living my life and fulfilling my life's calling if I was doing anything else. It's one of those things that the Lord gripped my heart. I think I was a junior in high school. I think I was 17, and the Lord gripped my heart and said, this is what I want for you. This is the life that I want you to live, is vocational ministry. Give up any plans and career plans that you had for yourself, and I'm going to take you wherever I want, and I'm going to move you, and you're going to be a part of this, and you're going to be a part of ministry, and it just means following me and trusting. And I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, it's what I've seen, it's what I've known, and it's what my heart is bent towards. I love it. I love people, and I love ministry, and I love watching the Lord work in unique ways in ministry. And the big thing for me was student ministry and camp ministry. That's what really gripped my heart. And so getting to do that now full time is a dream come true, even though there are some days when I'm like, I'm done. I want to throw in the towel. If I could go sell insurance, if I could go be a realtor, like, can I go do anything else besides this? But I stop and think, and I'm like, no, I would not be living a fulfilling life if I went and did anything, because I know I'd be living in disobedience. So
a pastor mentor of mine one time said, it's okay to want to quit, just as long as you don't quit.
Right.
And usually that day is Monday. So he would follow that up with saying, don't ever quit on Monday. It's the worst day. It's the Monday for ministry, people in ministry. Monday is the worst day to make any big decision. And it's the worst day to quit, because everybody wants to quit on Monday. Everybody's second guessing themselves on Monday, or wishing it would have been better, or wondering why it wasn't better. So we just have to disengage from the fact that Mondays are going to be emotional roller coasters based on Sunday. So let's go back a little bit. You talked about when you were a junior in high school, you just said yes. And I'm sure you could tell everybody tonight, when you said yes, God laid it all out in front of you. You knew exactly how it was going to play out.
Exactly.
Right?
20-year plan. Yeah. Just like that.
Yeah. There's an old saying, just put your yes on the table. God takes the yes and puts it on the map. And you don't know what that means when you say yes. But it's just simply being willing to say yes. I mean, Isaiah said it this way in Isaiah chapter 6. He said, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And so that's basically what you did at 17. You said, "Here I am, Lord, send me." But that all really started with a decision prior to junior in high school. Your mom and I were at our wits' end with you.
I remember.
Yeah, we were looking at each other and saying, how did the demons enter her so strong? And no, I'm just kidding. We were just like,
if something else doesn't kill her, we might.
Yeah. I mean, we were really struggling with raising you. You were strong-willed. You did not, your heart was not soft. You just seemed mad about everything. And so we thought it was a result of us pulling you away from your school, away from the friendships that you had, leaving the staff that we had. And we thought, here it is. This is the repercussion of saying yes to church planting. Our daughter's going to be the one who pays the price for this. And she's going to hate ministry. She's going to hate her parents. But then a D Now weekend happened.
Yeah. I remember it. And it was April of 2010.
Yeah, everything changed.
Yeah.
And you guys were gone on a Friday night and a Saturday night for a Disciple Now weekend. And at that time, Caleb and Casey Millen was leading our high school ministry. And you, I'll never forget you walking into the church that morning.
Paloma Creek Elementary.
Yeah, finding me in that back hallway, tears coming down your face, and you told me that you had given your life to Jesus that weekend. And I was like, that's amazing, because I was going to send her to Jesus, and but you gave your life to Christ, and when you did, everything changed. You didn't become perfect, the perfect child. I didn't become the perfect parent. And still not. You're still not the perfect child.
I'm not.
No, your brother is.
He has definitely surpassed me. Yeah, that's true.
But your heart changed. Your heart changed towards a heart for the things of God, not about a heart for the things of you. And our relationship began to change. Now, we've had struggles in and out because we're so similar. And we still will have times of tense moments because we're so similar. And we're strong-willed people. We're leaders. And we're not afraid to speak our mind, and we're not afraid to give an opinion. And we probably hold our opinions in our minds and our thoughts more than most people do in a year. We do that in a day.
Right.
So we still have had our moments, but you changed that day. And you didn't change, God changed you. And as a result of that, and your relationship with Casey and Caleb McMillan, and if you're out there watching, Casey and Caleb, we love you. Thank you so much for how you invested in my daughter. But you guys, the youth ministry went to Glorieta, New Mexico, because Casey McMillan had grown up going to Fuge camps.
Right. She worked that location before.
Yeah. And so we ended up transitioning to taking teenagers to Centrifuge at Glorieta, New Mexico. And while you were there, you caught a glimpse of student ministry, or the camp ministry, which led you to do some things with Fuge. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we went for the first time in summer of 2011. So it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I remember stepping foot on the campus. Casey had hyped it up. I mean, we had gone to the same camp for years prior to that, somewhere, is it Glen Rose, Texas?
Glen Rose.
And
Surface of the sun.
Terrible. Yeah. So hot. So we had grown up going there, and that's all I knew. And we stepped foot in Glorieta, New Mexico, totally different, scenario. And I was overwhelmed, and I hated it. I remember getting off the bus and then having that first worship session that night. I'm like, this is the worst week. I hate this already. I will never, ever enjoy this camp. I cannot go back to this. Don't know why I felt that way, but for some reason I just did. And
because you don't adapt to change.
I don't. Well. I hate change. And we got to the end of the week, and the Lord had just completely shifted that, where I was like, I don't ever want to leave. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is everything I ever could dream of and more. Like, I love that people get paid to do this. Like, that is incredible. And I heard about something called the SLA program, which stood for Student Leadership Apprentice Program. And it's a program for rising seniors and recently graduated seniors to participate in through Fuge camps. And it took place at 2 locations at the time. It was Glorieta, New Mexico, and Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. And you had to apply for it, get accepted. It was essentially 2 weeks at camp. Your first week at camp, you got to be a part of your SLA group as if you were a part of a Bible study group like the students are normally. And you had an SLA leader who served as your leader and your guide for that whole week. And you did a lot of personal development, spiritual development, team development, and you just bonded and grew as a group of SLA student participants. And then your second week, you got paired with one of the full-time staffers that were there for the summer, and you got to shadow them that whole week. And so we were paired with Bible study leaders teaching 7th and 8th, 9th and 10th, 11th and 12th grade. We got to shadow them and help them through Bible study, recreation, track times, and we got a behind-the-scenes look at what it was like to be a staffer for Fuge. And you got to go to staff meetings, and you got to help and set up all these things. And it was so much fun. And I remember being like, dang, I don't want to leave. Like, this is so life-giving to me. I love everything about this. And I remember thinking that week, I will work for Fuge. Like, I don't know when I'm able to apply. I don't know how old I have to be, but one day I will work for Fuge. And those 2 weeks were transformative for me. And I remember I stuck around. You flew out to New Mexico, and we stayed for that weekend, and then met the rest of the student ministry the third week I was there. So I was at camp, same location for 3 weeks, and it was the greatest summer of my life. It was so fun.
Yeah, I remember picking you up. And we did your laundry, and so
I remember it was lightly raining. It was a drizzle, and I remember sitting on the side of the wall, the rock wall there, outside of our apartment buildings, and I was crying because all my other friends that I had been doing this program with for 2 weeks had left, and I didn't want to leave. And you came to pick me up on campus, and I was so sad and crying. I was like, I miss them so much.
Yeah, it's like, why are you crying? But we had a weekend together, and then you met our students there on Monday when they drove in on the bus, and then you rode the bus home.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it started. But then you graduate from high school, and you go to Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
Which was a decision that I felt like stemmed from my call to ministry when I was a junior, because I started that college hunt process of, where am I going to go to school? What am I going to study? And I felt like that surrendering my life to the Lord for ministry, that altered where, no longer was I looking for a state school. I was looking for a Baptist education, a private education that offered Christian studies, biblical studies, ministry, education courses, and that I could get a Bachelor of Arts in ministry and biblical studies. And so that's what led me to Ouachita. And through Ouachita, I was able to fulfill that dream of working for Fuge. I spent every single summer of college working for Fuge. So my freshman, sophomore, junior, even that first summer out of college, I spent working Fuge. I did a new position basically every year. My first year, I was a support staffer, which is like the lowest totem pole position. I was at Glorieta, and we got up, with the sun, set up recreation 5:15 every morning. It was so early, but it was so fun. I loved it. And my second summer, I was a Bible study leader for 9th and 10th grade. Third summer, I was the assistant director at Glorietta. Those 3 summers were spent at Glorietta. My fourth summer, first one out of college, I was the director for our California locations. We had 2 locations there, one in Southern and one in Northern California. And then
We're at in California.
so we were at a location in Southern California outside the Redlands, about an hour, called Mile High Pines.
Okay.
So mile up in the air, basically.
Yeah.
Super high elevation. And then our Northern California location was outside of Sonora, and it was a place called Janess Park.
Yeah, but that wasn't very pretty.
No, it was terrible. We referred to it as Narnia because you're up there. You don't have any cell phone reception. You have no contact to the outside world, basically. Like, if you need to find somebody on campus, you're running around campus screaming people's names, trying to find them. It was wild. But it was so fun because you got to really disconnect and, unplug.
So while you were doing the California camp thing, in that process, you applied for a 1-year internship at Lifeway.
Yeah, before that. Yeah. My senior year of college, I was trying to figure out what the next step was. And I remember being a sophomore and receiving an email about this year-long program specialist internship at the Lifeway offices for Fuge. And at the time, I'm, smack dab in the middle of college. I can't pick up and go intern. And I said, one day, I hope I get to do that. And time came around again when I was a senior, and they put out those applications, and I applied. And I remember I got offered the job in March. And so I knew kind of what those next steps were going to be heading into the graduation season. And so I worked, I think it was 9 or 10 weeks of camp that summer. We finished out, and I came home, and I was home for just a couple of days. And then we moved me to Nashville.
We moved you to Franklin.
Yeah,
is where you lived. You lived with a couple there in their upstairs apartment.
Shane and Heather.
Yeah. But the interesting unknown fact is the house is on somebody fairly famous in Nashville's farm.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to share the information.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
He's friends with Carrie Underwood.
Yeah.
We'll just put it
he may have hosted a few award shows with Carrie.
Yeah. And you lived on his farm.
Yeah. His tour buses were outside my window.
But a ways far away from his house.
Like half a mile.
Yeah, like half a mile. So you never saw him. You lived there for a year and you never saw him.
Never saw him, but I did see a Christmas gift that when I came home from camp that summer in Florida. When I came home from camp, I walked in, and on the porch there was a Christmas gift wrapped, and it said "Love, Brad, Kim," and the kids' names on there. So it was written in their handwriting, and they couldn't get to them in December, so it was July and giving Christmas gifts.
Was it the Christmas gift for Shane and Heather or for you?
Definitely Shane and Heather. Not me. Okay. But the funny thing is, the girl, my friend Celia Grace, that lived with Shane and Heather the year after me, she did my same job at Lifeway. She got to meet him. And I was like, what in the world?
It was just a 1-year internship, and then it ends.
Yeah.
And it's coming to an end, and you're like, I got to find a JOB.
I knew at that point my internship was up in May, but I had to fulfill a summer of camp. So I was locked in for camp June and July in Panama City.
So you directed beach camp.
Yeah. So I literally did mountain camp for 4 years. Loved it because I don't like the heat. I don't like humidity. I love the mountains. And then they pulled the cruel joke of being like, okay, cool. We're going to send you to Panama City Beach. You're going to do camp in the sand, and it's super hot, and you're probably going to get sunburned, and there are going to be lots of jellyfish stings. Have fun. I was like, I don't even like the beach. At this point, I didn't like the beach.
Yeah.
We'd only been to Aruba.
Yeah.
Because we didn't grow up going to the beach.
Yeah.
And that summer changed me. I love the beach now.
You love the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to go to the beach. So did you get stung by any jellyfish?
No, not that year, but we had plenty of students get stung by jellyfish, and group leaders would call our phone and be like, what do we do? And I was like, do you want my honest answer? Because I can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
But the kid could.
Yeah, I know. We'll just stop there.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows what you're supposed to do. All right, so you finish up camp there, and then while you're at camp that summer, you actually get a job offer.
It was before.
Was it before? Okay.
Before I left for camp. It was actually around Mother's Day time because it was Cinco de Mayo weekend. I remember I rerouted my Cinco de Mayo plans to go to Jackson for an interview. And then I came home for Mother's Day, and we did that panel with Nana and Natalie and Mom.
Yeah.
And you kind of were alluding to the future, and she needs it. And all the while this was in the works. It just hadn't been confirmed. I hadn't had the full job offer yet. Okay. I was in the interview process.
Right. So God opens the door for you to go to Inglewood. Mm-hmm. We move you there.
Yeah, and that was through a connection at Lifeway.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, Steve Spence and Mary Margaret West at the time.
I said this a few weeks ago. I said, we play checkers, God plays chess. And it's only years afterwards that you can see how he moves you like pawns on a chessboard to get you where you need to be for such a time, to minister to such a person. And then when you're done there, you don't even know you're done there. God knows it. And he begins to open doors to move you a different direction. And so one of the things we talked about was sometimes it's hard to stay when you want to leave. And sometimes it's hard to leave when you want to stay. Have you experienced that?
Yeah. There was, Nashville, that first year was, it was a great first year out of college. A lot of people, I feel like their first year out of school struggle. It's the, big change from the previous 4 years. But the Lord was really kind to bless me with some great community through my job and through the church I was involved in. And Nashville really quickly felt like home because of the community I had there. And I was like, I want to stay. Like, I want to find a job here. And I want to stay in Nashville, work here, stay with these friends. And that was fully kind of what I was looking into. And then when I got this text message, I was actually at home. I think that, April or something, visiting you guys. And I got this text from an unknown number, and it was my old boss, Steve Spence. And he said, hey, I got your number from Mary Margaret. I'm at a conference in Florida. And I said, I need some girls ministry options. And she gave me your name. Would you be interested in hearing more about her position in Jackson, Tennessee? And immediately I was like, Jackson? I only stopped at Jackson to go to like Chick-fil-A on my way to Arkadelphia to go to like homecoming for college. Like, I don't want to go to Jackson. I want to stay in Nashville. But I remember you saying, at least just see. Like, you can't just say no. Like, see what happens. See what God has for you. And so I said, okay, like, we'll go for it. We'll see what happens. And door after door after door, domino just kept falling into place. And I remember that interview weekend, I went, Cinco de Mayo weekend was so clear and evident. Like, man, I felt so much peace about the job. I was like, I don't think, if I leave here and they don't offer it to me, I'm going to be crushed, because I got to meet girls and I got to meet leaders and moms. And I already started to like envision myself there. And I came back to Nashville, and I remember sitting in the living room floor of my friend's apartment, and we were talking about, about my weekend and my experience. And all my friends looked at me and they were like, you're moving to Jackson. I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not going to get it. And they're like, no, you're moving. And sure enough, like a week later, he called and offered the job.
That's awesome. And so you move, I think you moved in August.
Yeah.
Because I know you
had to finish camp.
Yeah, you finished camp. Mom went out there and helped you load your stuff up in Franklin. Your brother and I, we had our priorities in the right place. We went to St. Louis and took in a series against the Cubs, St. Louis Cardinals and the Cubs, for his high school graduation present. Yeah. And we pulled a lot of things that were yours in a trailer. I pulled it all the way to St. Louis, that trailer. And then we pulled that trailer all the way down to Jackson and met you and your mom, helped you move in, get you settled. And then we headed back home. Yeah. And so that seems like it was yesterday, but it's going on
almost 2.5 years, because my first day was August 1.
It'll be 3 years this coming August, 2021. So I know you're independent. I know you're strong-willed. I know you don't need anyone to hold your hand. You've never been a kid that I had to get out of bed. You're just that.
Except for after a really hard softball game.
Yeah. And let's face it,
we're down in the dumps.
We loved softball growing up, didn't we? But tell me about being single, being a girl away from home. I mean, Jackson's probably 10-hour drive? 9?
Yeah, 8 to 9. Yeah. Nashville was 10.
Yeah, so you're 8 to 9 hours away from home by car. You do have roommates. You have 80 girls that you oversee. You have a staff but tell me, what's the difficulties that you face?
Yeah, I think, ministry is one of those things that you can't do alone. It's a lonely profession, because you live a life that not a lot of people understand unless you've worked ministry or you've been a part of a ministry family growing up. And I knew kind of what I was getting myself into with ministry. It was long hours. You're, kind of always on call, essentially. You're expected, to be available for a lot of things. And
not to mention you live in a fishbowl.
You live in a fishbowl. Yeah, you're being watched and observed, whether you realize it or not. And so I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I didn't know fully just how lonely it could be for me stepping into this role and not having that support system around me close by. It was really hard that first year, feeling like I wasn't making community. And I think there was this fear of, we have a great young adult ministry at our church, but there's that fear of, how far can I let my walls down? How open and transparent can I be? Because these people know I work here.
Oh, that's good.
These people know, I lock and unlock the doors sometimes for them. And they know that the church pays, writes me a paycheck. And so how vulnerable can I be with them and trust that I'm still going to have a job tomorrow? How much do you let people into your life? And then there were, I'd come home for big holidays, but there were holidays like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter, Labor Day, 4th of July, holidays that people gather and families get together for, but you find yourself alone. And thankfully, thank goodness, I had my first Easter. One of my sweet families, the Helton family, invited me over for Easter lunch with them. And that was, meant the world to me because I didn't have anyone to spend Easter with. I remember we did Easter at our ballpark for our minor league baseball team. And because we bring all 3 campuses together for one service rather than having like 10 services. And she looked at me and she said, well, what are your plans? I was like, I may drive through Jack's and go get some chicken fingers and go home. She's like, absolutely not. You're coming over to our house and we're having Easter lunch. And it meant the world to me. But it's hard sometimes. Yeah. And I'm going to try not to cry. Yeah. I'm a girl, so we just cry. I'm
a guy and I cry.
I know your eyes are getting a little misty.
Well, because you don't realize that as a father. You don't realize your 25-year-old daughter or 24, 23, however old you were on that Easter is not, you realize she's not here.
So what is she doing?
What is she doing? And you just assume, she's a bubbly, energetic, she's the life at the party, she's hanging out with somebody. But I want to say to that family, the Heltons, yeah. Thank you. If you're watching, thank you for looking out for my girl and inviting her over. I know we've talked about that. The community element is really hard when you're in ministry because 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls, as much as you love them, they're not your community.
They're not. You can be friends with them, but they can't be your only friends.
Right. And you're single still, so you don't have your own family there. So you've got to find community with friends and people. Like, for instance, if you were here at Rock Creek, you'd be in our young adult ministry, and you would have friends in that group, just like your brother does.
And family close by.
Yeah.
That makes a world of difference, having relatives.
Yeah.
And, I look at our church staff, and a good majority of our church staff are married. I'm now the only single person on my direct team. Everyone else has gotten married over the summer. And so, there are lonely aspects when you show up to church events or church, staff parties and spouses are invited and you're like, okay, cool, rolling up again by myself, or just random stuff like that. And if you have a hard night, like you have a hard conversation with a parent or a hard conversation with a student and you're just down, and then you go home and you're by yourself and you're alone with your thoughts of you just beat yourself up over those conversations. You beat yourself up over, man, that girl made a dumb decision and you feel like it's your fault. Like you feel like you didn't help her enough and no one's there to be like, hey, snap out of it. Like that's not your fault. Like you couldn't have done anything about that, or you did your best. And so you kind of just sit there and you sulk, and it's really easy to stay in your apartment and to binge Netflix in the dark and never leave your couch on the weekend. And you just sit there. And thankfully I've got some amazing roommates, Abby and Mandy. They live with me this year. I've had 2 other really great roommates in the last 2 years. But they do a great job of, loving on me, and we are a great little family. Every time we walk in the door, we're like, hi, family. Like cute. We just have, we're like sisters, we're all sisters in Christ, but we are each other's community right now, living together. So you are a young adult, you're 25, you're single. What would you say to that person like you that has thought, man, am I ever going to find the right one? Oh gosh, I don't know. Cause I even asked that question, but
what do you tell yourself when you think that?
Gosh, I don't know. Sometimes I give in to the thought of like, oh, I'm going to be alone forever. Like sometimes I do. I think, man, what if it's just not for me? Because I think we can buy into the lie that the Lord promises a spouse, which is so not true and so not biblical. The Lord does not promise a spouse for us, but he does promise so many other things. Right. And so I have to be careful to not convince myself that, oh, when I get married, I've actually started catching myself saying, when I get married, when I have kids, and I flipped it and I said, if I get married, if I have kids, because I know that may not be what the Lord has for me. And as devastating as that is, because I do want a family of my own one day, I have to trust, like, if that's not the plan for me, there's a reason for that. And the Lord is going to be so kind even in that plan. And all those promises are going to be met and fulfilled. And it just may look different. And I'm just as much of a whole person and just as effective and, important for ministry as a single person as I would be, if not more, as a married person. I think Paul talks a lot about in his letters about singleness being such a great gift because you're able to go and to be and to move wherever the Lord moves you. And I mean, it's selfish, but like if I were to be called to move somewhere else, I don't have to consider kids, a husband. I don't have to think about anybody else but my life and, my, direct ministry that would be impacted. But there's not all these other pieces that fall into place. So it gives you this freedom to go when the Lord says go.
Okay.
It's also a scary thing because
Sure.
you're like, oh man, I'm doing this by myself. When I moved to Jackson and I was single and moving to Jackson, I was like, okay, we're being brave. Like we're doing this all on our own here. Like we don't know a single person in this city and it's scary.
Yeah.
But you trust that the Lord's going to show up and be faithful and provide what you need financially, community, all of those things.
So we got a few more minutes here before we got to wrap up.
We could go for probably 5 hours.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
We could, and we could do that, and we could just make 2 parts out of it. We'll see where God leads. But so we have parents that watch every week, and we might have some middle school girls or boys that watch every week. Doubt that is
it's probably
the case.
not their scene.
Well, and it plays when they're at youth group, so
That's fair.
chances are they're not watching. I interviewed Caden McGee a few
I
weeks
know,
ago.
I saw it. He was like, oh yeah, I'm at church.
Yeah, he said, no, I've never watched your podcast. Yeah. And hey, Caden, just so you know, Haley texted me and said, man, that kid is amazing.
I did. I watched the entire interview. I was like, this kid is so sharp. Like he has such a great head on his shoulders and I want to be his best friend.
Yeah, he's a leader and
he's a great kid.
He is. But what would you say to the parent in particular that's raising a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade girl? What do you see? What do you see as the struggle of that demographic right now? What's the big struggle there, and how could you encourage the parents that are journeying with that?
So I actually, a little over a month ago, sat down and I had coffee one morning with several moms of middle school girls, and we openly had this conversation. What is the thing? What are the things plaguing your girls? What is vying for their attention and what is eating at them? And a lot of them said anxiety. Anxiety is huge for them. And I know that's a big buzzword and we hear that a lot in our culture. But for this day and age of middle schoolers, they are glued in to so many things 24/7 that their anxiety is off the charts because they're constantly being looked at and criticized and judged. And they feel like they have to keep up appearances and they have to measure up to every single Instagram account that they see, and they have to measure up to what, everybody's doing, in school and out of school because they're seeing it constantly. There is no, hey, I'll see you Monday morning. Hope you have a good weekend. Like you're seeing every single aspect of each other's lives and what they're doing and what you weren't invited to and, what you got left out of and who's hanging out without you. And it brings a lot of anxiety to them because they feel like they don't measure up and they're not enough. And they worry about those things. And so anxiety is a huge thing for them. And then just belonging is a big deal for these girls. And parents, moms, they were saying that their daughters just want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they have a place in this world that they know that these are my people. This is home base. This is where I fit. And I think that's so huge for I feel like, even for me, that's a huge desire. It's like, I want to know where my people are, who is home base, who is my go-to group that I fit in and belong. So girls want that. And then I think, middle school girls' body image. I think that is another big thing is they're changing and it's hard. It's a hard life season figuring out, who am I going to become? I don't look like the Instagram models. I don't look like the girls on the movie screen. Am I beautiful? Am I ugly? A lot of it, it's a season of braces and acne and I went through it and you doubt, man, no one will ever love me. No one will ever think I'm pretty. No one will ever think I'm beautiful. And it's very, it's very self-centered, honestly, because it's all about us and self-consuming and thinking all about me, when the Lord says you are beautiful, you are chosen, you are loved. And so trying to shift middle school girls' perspectives of, hey, let's look at the big picture. Let's look at what the Lord says about you rather than looking at what the world is saying that you need to think about yourself.
This one word keeps coming to my mind as you talk, and that's the word identity.
Absolutely.
There's so many, even, let's just let the cat out of the bag here. There are moms and there are dads raising middle school boys and girls who are still trying to find their identity.
Right.
And
I would say we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I think there's always been a pandemic of an identity crisis globally. a worldwide pandemic of identity crisis, of people really just don't know who they are or what they are called to be, because we see so much of just this worldly picture of who we're supposed to be rather than seeing what God has called us to be. And we live for the things of this world rather than living for the things of the kingdom. And that skews our identity and causes us to be in this identity crisis.
It's the transition from worrying about who we are to understanding whose we are. Yes. And your daddy right here,
No.
even the first 5 years of this church, had a complete struggle with identity.
I remember.
Trying to live up to a standard of certain church planters that were hitting benchmarks at certain levels that we weren't hitting. And then I would have friends who we were hitting that they weren't hitting. And I finally came to peace with the fact that success is not butts in the seat. Success is not the size of the building. Success is the size of the influence. It's the size of the effect that you have if it's just on one person. Jesus had crowds, massive crowds. And if I were Jesus, people would follow me in massive crowds. If I could heal blind eyes, if I could heal leprosy, if I could walk on water, people would be coming in droves.
Right. Because you don't see that every day.
No. But when you break it down and you break it down and you break it down, Jesus broke it down to 12, but then he even broke it down greater to that, to 3.
Absolutely.
And he changed the world with those men. He didn't change the world with the crowd.
Right.
He changed the world with 12, minus Judas.
Right.
It just goes to show you that it's not about 2 million fans or friends on Facebook, or likes or dislikes or clicks or not clicks. It's about one. Andy Stanley said it this way: do for one what you wish you could do for all.
That's good.
You can't do everything for everybody, but if you can do something for one, and that's what I want to say to you is my pride that wells up in me when I see what you're doing is that you're focusing on what God has given you in the moment. You want more because you're driven. You want more. God, give me more. I want more influence. I want more blessing. And blessing isn't I want a bigger house, better car, or more money in the bank account, although sometimes those things are nice.
I would like that.
Yeah, I know.
Very much so.
But you want to make a difference. You want to get to the end of your life and say, I mattered.
Right.
Not because of what I had, but of cause what I lived for. And I just see that in you, and I see that in your brother, as he has a heart for missions in the Dominican and the young people there. I don't know how that happened, because your mom and I are, well, your mom's great, but I was such a unsuccessful father sometimes, because I was so involved in ministry that sometimes, I mean, I preached it, but I forgot that my greatest ministry was the ministry at home.
Right.
And I just am so proud and so pleased of what God has done in you guys' lives. And it's so cool to know that my daughter is leading young ladies to Christ, which in turn spiritually are my granddaughters, because it's being passed down from generation to generation.
The legacy.
Yeah. And so, I know out there are parents that are about to just be at their wits' end with their sons or daughters, especially during those junior high years, because they are weird years.
So strange.
I went through strange times, 7th and 8th grade, so hard. Being a late bloomer, and so many of the other guys were early bloomers. It was just awkward, and
everybody's on their own timeline. Like, you can't compare your journey to somebody else's. Like, everybody's doing their own thing.
And so I just thank God that, he called me to do what I do, but more than that, he's replicated that in my children.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't be more proud of you. I'm more proud of what you're doing now than if you would have been a professional athlete. The day you told me you'd quit college softball at Ouachita.
You were so mad.
Yeah, I was disappointed, because I wanted to spend another 4 years of watching you play softball there at Ouachita. By the way, Ouachita Baptist University. There's no W in Ouachita. Look
Absolutely
it up.
not.
But you went there. I thought you went there to play softball.
No.
You went there to get an
I
education.
never went there to play softball.
I know, but you know what? Here's a great statement, and a dad needs to hear this. When you called me and you told me, Dad, I don't want to play softball no more. I'm done.
I left Coach McGee's office. I hung up my cleats.
Yeah, I'm done. I hung them up, and I'm like, what? Why did you do that? And you said this, I can't play softball and be involved in the student ministry side of Ouachita Baptist University. And I want to get involved in student ministry side. And when you said that, I was like, wow. See, that's a decision at 18 or 19 I would have never made, because my identity was found in athletics.
Right.
And
the performance of what I can do.
Exactly. And God was already twisting your heart right there and shaping it and molding it into ministry. And I want you to focus on people, not just accomplishment. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a successful athlete. There's nothing wrong with having
because that can be a ministry.
Absolutely.
That can be your mission field.
But for you specifically, God had a call on your life, and he was getting you to that call. And watch this. If left up to me, I would have distracted you from that call. I would have pushed you in a direction for me, this Father, rather than in the direction of your Heavenly Father. And you may not even be doing what you're doing today if I had.
Right. But it took a lot of bravery and it took a lot of boldness for me to, I didn't look at you in the face and tell you that because I was 4 hours away at college. But on that phone call, basically telling you like, no, I've made the choice and I'm grown. I'm 18. Like I'm changing the course of my life here.
The phrase you used is, I'm a grown woman.
Yeah. I'm a grown woman. I'm 18 years old. I look back and I'm like, she was so dumb. Because I'm 25 now and I'm like, I do not feel grown. Like there's so many aspects of my life where I'm like, I have nothing figured out.
I'm 50 and I don't feel grown.
I barely like to cook. Like my roommates joke all the time. They're like, you need to eat something green. I'm like, but it's just so hard. I don't want to cook.
Yeah. Well, it's just cool to see how God changes paths and how he'll show you things in life where your life is not my life.
Yeah.
And my life is not your life. And you've got to go find your life, your God-given call, and the path and the journey that God has given you to follow.
Which is huge because you and Mom never held me back. Like, I remember when I went to SLA as going into my senior year of high school, you guys let me get on that plane by myself and fly to Santa Fe and figure out what to do when I got there. And you never held me back. Every summer I applied for camp. I was never home. When I left at 18, I've only ever come home for holidays. I've never spent a summer here.
I know.
And you guys never questioned me, never held me back, never discouraged me. Said, go. If the Lord is saying go, go. And moving to Nashville, I never asked your permission.
No.
I said, I'm moving. I got a job. And you're like, can you pay your bills? I was like, no, probably not. You're like, okay.
We'll help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you let me live that journey that the Lord was taking me on, and you never second guessed it. You're like, the Lord is moving her and we're going to support her and go.
So that's how we're going to wrap up tonight, because it goes right back to this idea. So many of us don't say yes to the Lord and follow that God-given call or that nudge because we can't answer all the questions before we take the step. I think of even like Deacon Sam leaving and moving to the Dominican. Yeah. I mean, they have so many unanswered questions. But if they waited for them to all be answered, they'd never get there.
Right. Because there are just things you won't know until you set your feet on the ground.
That's correct. A few weeks ago, Greg was talking about we're going to be baptizing again on December the 6th. And he said, maybe you're wondering why you need to be baptized. Trust me, when you get in the water, you'll know why. And it is. It's like God just gives us just enough to get us to take the step.
Yeah.
But for some people, that's not enough. They need to know more. And I just want them to know you're an example of this. Rock Creek, it being in existence, is an example of this. Sometimes the victory and the breakthrough that God has for you is really predicated on you being willing to take the next step.
Right.
What is your next step? And it may not be, my next step is to sell it all and move to Africa. Right. Sell it all and move to the Dominican. My next step may be to go across the street and have a conversation with my neighbor about my church and about my God. It might be your next step is in a classroom setting or in a hallway, having a conversation with a peer that's a spiritual conversation that says, hey, God has done something in my life, and I can't keep it within myself.
Right. I can't not share this with you.
And so I think when you say you never held us back, here's what we never wanted to get in front or in the way of God's yes for you, God's path for you. As hard as that was for me, because I so enjoyed from pretty much third grade through high school, I enjoyed being on a ball field with you. I enjoyed hitting grounders to you. I enjoyed
absolutely throwing the ball as hard as we could at each other in the backyard and nailing the fence.
I loved it. And the story is that if God does give you a spouse at your wedding, we're not going to have a dance. We're going to have a catch.
Oh, yeah.
And
let's have a catch.
And so my desire for you was so different. I knew what I wanted for you, but I wanted something for me. I wanted to live vicariously 4 more years watching you play softball.
Yeah.
And
even though I was probably not going to play.
It doesn't matter.
Watch me sit on the bench.
Yeah, well, I don't know that. You don't know that. But I had to say, okay, God, I'm at peace with this, because what I'm seeing is there's a grander plan, and it's your plan, not my plan.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thankful that you have found your path. You have found your journey. You have found your peace. You could have done 100 different things and made a lot more money. But those 100 different things may have not given you the influence and the impact on the lives that you have now.
Well, and just disclaimer, that peace that I found in this season, it doesn't mean that I wake up and I'm never terrified. I wake up every day and I'm scared to death about, gosh, I don't feel adequate. I feel so terrified. But the Lord is so kind to make us brave each and every day to take that step and get out of bed and to take the next step and to walk out the grand adventure of following him, because it is an adventure. You never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah. Well, Haley, most people don't know this, but your nickname is Bop. We've called you Haley Bop for years.
Bopster Lobster. Bop. Josh Barrett would call me that.
Yeah. But Bop, I'm proud of you. And you're doing ministry in a way and in ways that I never did. And you're doing things that I don't even know about. And so I'm so thankful for what God's doing. I wish I had you on my staff here, but right now, obviously, it's just, that's not right. That's not the time. Maybe somewhere in the future, but wherever you serve the Lord, there at Inglewood and with those girls, they're blessed to have you. And I don't say that because you're my daughter. I say that because it's reality. You're a natural born leader, but your heart is tethered to God's heart, and you're a God chaser. But you're real, you're authentic, you're transparent, but your heart is chasing after the heart of God, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Great job.
Love you.
Love you. Keep doing it. Don't stop. Okay.
Okay.
Guys, thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it probably went a little longer than you expected or normal, but hey, listen, that was a great conversation with my daughter. And if you do have a daughter that you're raising or a son that you're raising that's a teenager, hey, help them find their identity in Christ. Tell them to chase after God no matter what the world says, because it's not about who we are, it's about whose we are. I love you, and I'll see you next week right here on Go the Distance.